Hello, I'm Basement Horrors, and this is True Horror Stories number 20. The stories may not seem too terrifying, but if you would take a moment to close your eyes and listen, and put yourself into the situation, you'll surely understand the fear these people felt. Without further ado, here's a story from Black Magic Chick on Reddit. It's about something quite frightening that happened to her on her way home from a midnight screening. Please, enjoy. Last night, I went to a midnight screening of Princess Mononoke, which ended around 2:30. I had an offer to go over to a friend's house, but since he was busy packing to move to another city, I decided that I'd just go home. Thankfully, my city, at least on the weekends, has a subway running 24-hour, so I didn't have to wait in the cold to take what I like to refer to as the drunk bus. Went rather smoothly. The train arrived shortly after it got underground, and I made my connection easy peasy. The issue started when I got off at my stop. As I'm walking to go up the stairs, I hear a woman on the other platform being really loud, which is easy to ignore, but then I keep hearing her say, "Miss, miss." I glanced because I was the only other female on the platform, but I didn't recognize her, and I kept on rolling. I get to the top of the first flight of stairs, and she gets to the top of her stairs at the same time, and once again starts with, "Miss, miss." But she looked like she was looking towards the ticket booth, so I assumed she was having an issue with the cops I saw on her platform, and was trying to get someone to back her up. So I go through the turnstile and continue over to the escalator. I get above ground, light a cigarette, and wait for the light to change. Just as I cross the street, the same woman comes out of the stairwell of the corner I just got to. Now, for reference, my subway stop has entrances on the street I was on and on the street I live on. Out of habit, I don't go out the exit on my street because the walk to my house is a little too dark and desolate. So now I'm screwed because I could go back down into the subway and come out on my street, but that doesn't present a better scenario. So I walk and, of course, she follows. She kept saying, "Miss, miss," asking for a light, and talking about some cop who wasn't anything, that she didn't care that they took their baby. She wanted it back, but doesn't even actually want it, and how she needed to get to work. I just kept pretending that I couldn't hear her and kept walking. The guy who was walking in front of us at one point turned around because, duh, that didn't make her happy, and she just gave a quick, "I'm not talking to you, man, I'm asking her." Another guy walked past us, and she asked the time. It was 3:08 a.m., which prompted the word count comment. Just as we get to where I usually turn up to get to my street, the guy in front turns and walks the opposite direction on the same street. Since where I would turn gets rather dark where the local mechanic shop is, I decided to keep on walking straight and hook around at the corner to my block. At that corner of the street I'm on and my street intersect. When I get to the corner and turn onto my street, she's still on my heels. Now I'm starting to really panic. There's absolutely no one around, and I can't keep walking further away from my house because it's so poorly lit and no one is around. As we round the corner, I hear her say, "There's a path mark." I knew I was close to home. I live right up there. The path mark, which is about a block and a half up the street, hasn't been opened in over a year, but it is a handy landmark, so I start to chalk it up to a creepy coincidence. I proceed to my house and toss the butt of my cigarette into the street, which she picks up and gives an actual sincere thank you. I get to my door and she decides to sit on the steps of a neighbor 2 doors down from me. I don't know my neighbors like that, but I know for sure that she doesn't live there, and that put me back in panic mode. Now, in hindsight, I probably should have looped back around and gone back to the subway, but I wasn't thinking clearly. My keys were in my pocket, but I wasn't holding on to the 2 specific ones that I needed to open the door, and I didn't want to fumble with them in case she was trying to break in. So I rang the doorbell, pretending I didn't live there and needed to be let in, and decided to wait her out. It took 2 doorbell rings and 15 minutes of me looking at the window like I was looking for someone, I live alone, to open the door before she got up and walked away. Mind you, walking the opposite direction of the pathmark. I followed her in the reflection of my screen door until she was far enough away that I could get my keys out and get in the door before she could try whatever it was she was going to try. I kept rechecking that I had locked the door, sat up in bed fully clothed, and cursed myself for misplacing my bat for the rest of that night. I don't live in the best of neighborhoods, but I've never had something like that happened to me scare me so bad. Needless to say, I really regretted not having gone to the liquor store earlier in the day because I seriously needed a drink right then. So, crazy lady from the subway, let's never meet. I know that I personally wouldn't want to experience something so unnerving, but luckily for me, I haven't had to. Much. Next up is a story of an unexpected backyard visitor. This from JRM 2003. Enjoy. Was going to no sleep with this until I realized that was fictional sub. This is an actual experience that makes me peep out my kitchen blinds every morning before turning on the light. Cut to the encounter. It's dawn, so still a little dark, even though the blinds are all open in the kitchen. I flip on the light and start feeding the cats as usual. Looking through the glare on the window, I see someone in my backyard, which wouldn't be unheard of as an older lady rents the guest house behind me, but she has her own fenced-in area. I get closer and lose my breath as a scraggly middle-aged stranger is in a robe in my backyard staring at me. He's standing perfectly still and doesn't look away, which immediately struck me with a, oh crap, I'm in a horror movie feeling. I stared back for a bit and finally realized that he was looking at the house, not at me. I rationalized, thinking maybe he is the older lady's overnight guest, and maybe he got confused about her living arrangement. Maybe he even thinks that I'm an intruder. So I step out back and give him a good morning, how you doing? As I walk up and try to determine his eye line. He answers back normally, as if nothing about this situation is weird. No, he has not made eye contact, he is still staring at my house. I then voice the passive-aggressive suburbia threat. Can I help you? I'm your neighbor. I think my kid's toy's on your roof. 2 things. I know my neighbors, and he was not familiar. Also, what kid's toy lands on a roof at this hour? I tell him I'll go up and check after work, kind of shooing him out. He doesn't move, just keeps staring. I repeat, I'll go check after work. You can go. Which house are you? I'll leave it at your door. What is it? He's silent for a moment, as I grow more irritated at his lack of response, and more creeped out. Finally he replies, oh, I'm just a couple of houses that way. He lackadaisically points in no discernible direction. I say okay, and ask again what his kid lost. He speaks again. Really, I could get it if I could just come inside and go out that window, as he points up to an attic vent. No, that's not really a window. I promise you I will check later. Have a good day, sir. Again, trying to politely shoo him. I've now edged myself over to a loose board from the fireplace that I could use as a weapon. He continues to stare at the house. His eyes haven't yet moved. I pick up the board and pretend I'm moving to place it on the table behind him so I can put myself between myself and the fence gate, his hopeful exit. As I'm doing that, he breaks the trance and walks towards my back door. I'm pretty much done with niceties at this point. I run up to block him, board in hand, and deliver the weakest intimidation speech ever. Look, man, I don't know who you are, but I'm sorry. Maybe I don't remember you, but it's early, and I can't let you inside my house. Please, I'll look on the roof later." He raises up his hand as if to say, No, I don't mean any harm," and tries to put it on my shoulder. I sidestep and put a few feet between us. He speaks again in a dazed tone. "I'm sorry, maybe I could just use your ladder. I can get up there." I get a little more confrontational and raise the board to show it. Not cocked, but visible. "Dude, I said I'd look later. Please leave. I have to get ready for work." He turns, saunters, and looks at the house again. Now back to its original spot, in a trance again. "Please leave." My yell rolls off him. He isn't even listening, but after a yawn, he does casually make his way to the backside of the house. At this point, I dart back inside and watch him from the windows, cell phone at the ready. He leaves and shuts the gate behind him effortlessly, which, by the way, is hard to do. My friend saw it mastered the lift and pull gate locking move. I asked around, and no one knew who this guy was, based on my description, and no one has seen him since. I would say that he was mentally ill, maybe homeless and passing through, but he seemed too clean-cut. Scraggly, but not dirty. I still don't know what to make of it. It was just so bizarre how he paid so little mind to trespassing and being told to leave. And no, there was no toy on my roof, or in my yard. Parents always seem to doubt their children at the worst of times in movies. Here's a real-life account of just that, told by FJSGK. I just found this sub, and I wanted to share my own experience. It happened when I was 13, and it's something I've never forgotten. We had just moved into a brand new house in a brand new housing development. A lot of the houses around us were either unfinished or had families that had just moved in. Behind our house was a lot of field, mostly for more future homes. We lived in a fairly safe small town, and the housing development was very quiet for the first few years, so we never really bothered to lock the doors. Even at night most of the time, it just wasn't something that we thought about. My parents had just put in a hardwood floor, so the house was a pretty echoey single story. One night, as I was laying in bed trying to fall asleep, I thought I heard the back sliding glass door open. I was up late on the internet, but everyone else was asleep, so the house was quiet. I had my door slightly open so my cat could come and go, and so I knew I was definitely hearing something. I froze, hoping it wasn't the door, but a moment later, I heard it slide shut. Then I began to hear what sounded like heavy shoes walking across the hardwood floor. It was a very specific sound, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. The footsteps were very slow and quiet, like they were trying to make as little noise as possible. But because the floor was wood and our house had high ceilings, the steps echoed down the hallway to my room. Then I heard them stop, the sound of the hallway door being opened, and then the door quietly clicking shut, like they had turned the knob, pulled the door closed, and then released the knob once it was in place. It was silent after that. My heart was beating so fast, and I began to cry. The only way to my parents' room was up that hallway. Their door was only about 20 feet away from where that hallway was. I was frozen, and I honestly thought I would pee my pants. I was so scared. However, it was silent for long enough that I knew I had to get my dad. So I stood up and walked sock-footed to my door. I stood there for a long time breathing. Then I ran. It's not a long hallway, but I went as fast as I could. I got inside the room and tried to wake my dad up. Dad! I was frantically whispering. Huh? He was half asleep. Dad! Huh? What? Dad, I think there's someone inside the house. What? Get up, I think there's someone inside the house. There's no one in here. Go back to sleep. Yes, there is. I started crying. That got him up. My mom also wakes up at this point as well, so they both get out of bed. My dad, Sure there's no one in the house, doesn't even grab anything as his weapon. But I follow behind him as he leaves the room. He goes to the living room, passes the closet, turns on all the lights in the house. I remember standing in the living room, knowing exactly where the person was, and not being able to say anything. He tells me, "Look, there's no one." He doesn't even check the closet, and I don't tell him to. I was so afraid that whoever it was just going to jump out there with a knife and kill my dad in front of me, and my 13-year-old me keeps thinking, I can't be the one responsible for my dad's death. So I say nothing, and I don't tell him to check the closet. I don't know why he didn't, because if I were a dad, I would have. But he locks the front door, and he tells me to go back to bed. They wait until I'm back in my room before they close their own door and go back to sleep. Again, the house is silent, and I'm laying there afraid because that person is still in here in the one place he didn't look. Suddenly, I hear the closet door open just as slowly and as quietly as before. Then the footsteps again. I could hear them so clearly walking towards the kitchen where the back door is, and they stop. That's followed by the sound of the back door being split open and then quietly being pushed closed again. I hear the back door click into place, and then the house is silent. I'm laying there, crying and breathing, but hearing them leave the house, I felt instant relief, though I was still shaking with fear. Gave it a few minutes, hoping they wouldn't come back, and they don't. So after a bit, I sneak out there. My one and only thought is to lock the back door, which I managed to do. But the scariest part is that when I look at the hall closet, the door wasn't closed anymore. It was cracked because they hadn't bothered to close it after they left. Though I know it was definitely closed when my dad was out there with me. I tried bringing it up to them years later, and they still didn't believe me, but that's not something you just hear. Now we have time for one more story. Are you up for it? Well, I guess you don't have much choice unless you click off the video. Gonna tell you anyway. This story is by Sophia's cat. Here we go. First, I need to give some background to be able to properly set the scene. I grew up in a small town in South Africa. The town is up in the mountains, so there's mostly dirt roads, dense bushes, and some forests. Our house is at quite the edge of the town. The road going past our house only leads to another village. It's not that important to this story in particular. An important thing to note is that there are no streetlights in this town. This means that at nighttime, it would be so dark that you couldn't even see your hand in front of your eyes. First things first, poverty is everywhere in South Africa. I'm sad to say that most of the townspeople were white English people, bearing a few families including mine. We are white and Africans. My father is the DIY type, so of course, we had a lot of fairly expensive tools and things. With the town being so isolated, you couldn't get everything you needed without driving about an hour and a half to the closest city. This meant that my family drove out about once a week to do our weekly grocery shopping. When we returned, it was usually to a broken-in house. Usually they only stole precious clothes, blankets, pillows, and money. They left the expensive alcohol, which gave the impression that the burglars were young. The parents usually sent in the younger kids, since they could fit through the burglar bars, which we had on every single window, of course. I have many stories about this, but the one I'm focusing on right now happened when I was in grade 8, about 5 or 6 years ago. My mother, 2 sisters, and I had moved to said city to attend school, since my town was too small for one. Some weekends we'd visit my dad, although my parents were going through a divorce. At the time, I was quite depressed. I never slept at all and spent all my time reading. I had recently started reading a series, and I decided to see how far I could make it before I fell asleep. I had my own room on the other side of the house, the only room without burglar bars. It was only recently converted into a bedroom for my father's library and study. I felt vulnerable, so my main light was off and I was reading with only a small lamp. My window faced the road, and there was a second gate about 100 meters that we never used. We had a gorgeous, albeit racist, black Labrador, Bagheera. She'd sleep outside, but outside my window. She was a loving pupper, and only turned aggressive whenever someone or something that didn't belong, like a caracal or a burglar, was on our property. Note, a lot of people in South Africa are afraid of black dogs since you can't see them at night. People are afraid of them almost like they're afraid of a black cat. Here I am reading. I've reached the 4th book and it was around 4 a.m. I'm getting to a good part when sweet Bagheera lets out a quiet, warning boof. Paranoid and more than a little scared, I immediately switched the light off and was plunged into darkness. Everything was quiet. There was no wind that night. After a few moments, Bagheera settled down until I heard the gate being pushed open slowly. I'll never forget that squeaking sound as it was slowly being pushed open. Bagheera sprinted off to the intruder while I hid under my blanket. She chased him around for a bit, but soon ran out into the street. I lifted my head a bit as I heard the leaves outside my bedroom rustling. My heart was pounding, and I was deathly afraid. Suddenly, my decision to claim the bedroom so far from the rest of the family seemed very stupid and immature. Bagheera, baby, I called softly. In response, someone shone a torch through my window. We both froze for a second, until Bagheera came bounding back. She was a barking, growling warrior. I could hear more than one person scuffling away. I ran out of my room into my dad's room. I woke him and told him to go look outside, please. Grumbling, he did as I asked. Bagheera immediately came inside and patrolled with him. My dad later said he heard people but saw nothing, so he let 3 warning shots into the air to warn them to stay away. Every night since that, I've been afraid to sleep without burglar bars and curtains or blinds. I plan to get a gun for self-defense as soon as I'm qualified to. Not sure if this is better suited for creepy encounters, but to the would-be intruder or intruders, let's not meet. Well, we seem to be at the end of the video. I sincerely hope you've enjoyed these stories as much as I've enjoyed relaying them to you. I'm Basement Horrors, and until next time, have a horrific day.